Hello and welcome to another edition of History After Hours. My name is Kevin Pumphrey, and the other hosts today are Mr. Keith Todd and Mr. Ron Franklin. We are history teachers at Lakeside High School here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And today our podcast was in front of a group of students here at the very end of the school year. Today is May the 1st, 2019. And it was basically another question and answer session that was very interesting. We talked about zombies, Game of Thrones, the 2020 election, all sorts of stuff. So it was a very different type of podcast because we covered so many various topics. But the questions were great. The students were awesome. And make sure that you follow us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, wherever you can find History After Hours. And also, next Thursday, May the 9th, we will be at Collective Coffee in downtown Hot Springs. So make sure you join us for that live podcast, plus acoustic music as well. And yes, so without further ado, enjoy the podcast. Okay, History After Hours. Today is May the 1st.
Hot dang, May Day.
2019. We are ending our school year, and we are at Lakeside School in Mr. Franklin's room, staring at students. And they are going to lead this discussion by asking some very, very important questions, which we won't know the answer to, but we'll make stuff up. So, who's got the first question? Just come on up and talk into the mic.
Name for the record. My name is Kayla Streepy. Okay, so earlier today, me and my friend Alex were talking about zombies. And, weird question, but if we had zombies, do you think they would be like Walking Dead zombies?
Ice zombies, swamp zombies. Like, what are you doing?
Like, zombies.
Okay.
Like, do you think they would be Walking Dead zombies, World War Z zombies, or I Am Legend zombies? So, like, I'm giving...
If they were really zombies, what would they really be?
What type of zombies? Yeah, we are hoping for Walking Dead zombies. Best case scenario.
Why are we hoping for that?
Because they walk.
As opposed to the World War Z that ran?
Run full speed at you,
right,
or I Am Legend.
Yeah.
I Am Legend would be better. The worst ones would be the World War Z, right? Because they go out in the sunlight. The I Am Legends would be second. They have to stay in the shade or something. But the Walking Dead would be awesome. That'd be we got lucky. Now, there is deer zombies, apparently.
How about the Crawling Dead? That'd be even better. Yeah, the Creeping Dead. I think that I could pretty much get enough mobility to get away from those boys.
Yeah.
Right.
Have y'all heard about the deer zombies?
No.
So there's some sort of virus that is going. This last year was going around.
Oh, you're talking about
called it
the chronic wasting disease?
Yes.
CWD. Yeah.
Where the deer were acting like zombies, and they were trying to figure out, can this be passed to humans? So there you go.
And the answer is through the meat, or if you eat some brain matter, probably. And so people who take deer in CWD zones are encouraged to be very cautious when they're cleaning and processing those deer.
How do you know that one's been infected? By looking at it?
It's a little bit like physical features. It's not going to act like a deer typically would. That's not going to shy. It's going to be drooling, like a lot of the typical rabies things that you would be looking for.
I thought you were going to say typical zombie things. Staggering,
I don't know
moaning.
what that would be.
It's kind of like eighth
staggering,
graders.
yeah.
On the first day of school, if you watch an eighth grader kind of moaning and stuttering around and not sure where to go, it's kind of that.
Yeah, that's good.
If I'm remembering right, it's a prion-based disease, so it's in the same kind of family as like bovine, mad cow disease. It's in that same kind of realm.
Mad cow. That's a great name for a disease.
Isn't it though?
Yeah, mad cow.
I shied away
He's
from
mad.
its real name. Bovine encephalopathy.
Oh,
that's its real thing, right?
That's way too sciencey. Mad cow
Right?
sounds much better.
All right. Yeah. So
All right, so
the best kind would be The Walking Dead by far.
Yeah, I think so.
But what kind will we get? I think if it's a zombie, if only barely its brain is working, I think it's not going to be able to just run full. Like, you would think all of its physical ability.
Why
would decline.
does it? All the horror movies, we go all the way back to like Night of the Living Dead. They're like, why is there some sort of like zombie legend explanation for why they crave cannibalistic. Why are they brains? Yeah, why is that? Oh, why is that? Do we know that? Does anybody know that? Okay, go. Yeah. Well, come up so you can say the thing.
Right. Doesn't every human wish they had a brain? Is that it just doesn't die?
They kind of just like eat meat, like they just go for like meat and carnivorous things, but
ravenously.
We're the easiest to catch, in all honesty. Like humans would be the easiest to catch.
I've seen Zombieland. That makes sense.
Yeah, and also the first episode of The Walking Dead, they eat a horse and they eat dogs.
Oh, okay.
Like it's just
we're slow.
We're slow and we're very heavily populated in different areas, so we're the easiest to reach.
Okay, so nomadic hunter-gatherer zombies, we're the easiest prey.
Yes.
All right, that makes sense.
It would also be that like in bigger cities where people are more concentrated. Would be where zombies, like the infection spread the fastest, and that would be where they are concentrated. So people in bigger cities would be the easiest to eat because there are more people than animals.
All right. That makes complete sense.
Well, so let's talk about what is actually the scary thing. Like this kind of like brain...
Being devoured alive is not a scary thing?
Well, I mean, of course it is. But like... There is kind of a zombie thing out there in nature. It's kind of a real thing. There's this fungus that will attach itself to an ant, and then it takes control of the ant. Like the ant is no longer a part of the colony. It's not doing what the colony wants or what it wants, but it will go out, latch onto a tree, and then never let go. That way this fungus can then bloom off of it and consume its body. So imagine something like that transferring in.
To humans?
Yeah.
Cool.
Isn't that what Venom is about? Venom? I don't know. It's something
symbiotic
latches to you and symbiotic takes you over. I don't think it actually happens.
To ants.
Zombies, for ants, yeah. I don't know. But this is not unsimilar to having like the Charles Whitman, the shooter, who had a brain tumor and it took him over and made him have rage. So I'm wondering if I wonder if in the past, before they knew about brain tumors and about the effect, if there had been some case studies of people just having this rage all of a sudden like he did, and it's all because of where it was pushing on his brain, and it made him have these impulses he couldn't control. I don't know. But that's actually true, because he actually said, please examine my brain after I'm dead because I can't control these impulses.
Can't parasites do that kind of thing too? Like we've talked about sleeping sicknesses, and then if we think about something, have you ever read about the Haitian voodoo zombie phenomenon? Like there's different I'm not talking about the hocus pocus part, but there's like some sort of I don't know, for some sort of drink or something that they can ingest that then causes them to go into some sort of paralysis, and it looks like they're dead but they're not really, and next thing you know, up they pop and people think they're reincarnated or back from the dead. Have you heard of that?
I had a friend in college. I thought he was dead, and then all of a sudden he drank something. I don't know. All right. I don't know.
There was a dude, speaking of dudes in college, there was a guy that we went to school with, and every once in a while he would just disappear for a week. And everybody's like, I don't remember his name. Where's
Waldo?
Ryan. Waldo. And somebody would say, well, no, I know what happened to him. I'm like, what happened to? They go, he went to Roboland. And I was like, what are you talking about? And apparently he would go and like buy a case of Robitussin.
Oh my gosh.
And like chug it and pass out for 3 or 4 days. And he called it going to Roboland.
That can't
He's
be
dead now, just so you know. He didn't make it past junior year.
Natural selection at work.
Yeah, right?
All right. This is a very distinct podcast so far. Okay. Next question.
Okay. I'm Isabella Calhoun, and I don't know if y'all watch Game of Thrones. I know you do. What are you thinking?
Well, about the last episode, are you caught up?
No, but I want you
Is this going to be spoilers for
I don't want to spoil things if you haven't seen it.
to tell me. I know a lot of things. What one is it?
After the last episode, I was... It hurt. I mean, it was TV history. It was the longest battle that had ever been broadcast in a single thing. I'm not quite sure how to answer the question because there's so many things you could think. Like, who do I think is going to win? What do I think about this last thing? I don't know. I have this weird sort of feeling that maybe I really hate Cersei, you know, and so because she's now sent out. Have you watched any of this season at all? Okay, she sent out Bronn, the sort of the merc guy that's been with Jaime for so long. She sent him out with that crossbow that Tyrion used to kill their father, to go and kill both her brothers, her traitor brothers, she said. And so that dude's running around out there somewhere. They're about to go, like the battle for Winterfell is over. They're about to go to King's Landing. And part of me hopes, I don't know how it's going to work out, but part of me hopes that it's going to come down to the two brothers against her specifically, right? I think she's almost like going to take on that Mad King scenario, burn them all or whatever. That's how I kind of picture that going. And I think it would be poetic justice. Not that I want to see, I really like Tyrion, but I think that he doesn't make it. I think that's where that's going. There's got to be some tragedy, and I think that maybe that's where it lands. So the way I think it works out is that somehow or another, Tyrion gets killed, and I think Jaime takes Cersei out, because he is the King Slayer, right? They've been talking about that since day one, and so maybe he actually fulfills that role now that she's actually turned on him too. I don't know, maybe, because he's always loved Tyrion, right? She hasn't. She's always hated him. So maybe that's where it. Now, who wins ultimately? I don't know. I don't think Tyrion makes it. I don't think Jon Snow makes it. Yeah, I know. Aegon Targaryen. I don't think he makes it.
Yeah, but that would be like a hard, yeah.
I know, right? But they're going. It's from what the only thing the producers have said about the ending is that it's going to be bittersweet. So that means you're going to get some of what you want and some of what you don't want, and that's, to me, that would be bittersweet to me. Because like I said, I really like Tyrion, but I think it would be poetic justice for Jaime to take her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I've never thought about
Yeah. I mean, I could be completely wrong. I have no idea. So
I hope you're right, though.
they've been good about changing gears on you really quickly. You don't know what's going to happen. So, but yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones. Yeah.
I would add to the conversation, but I can't.
I can't believe you don't watch
Me
this.
either.
No, I don't. I can't.
Oh
I
my
don't.
God,
No,
it's
I
so
don't even
good.
want to start. I know I'll love it, and I don't want to start
What do you mean?
because that's hours and hours of my
You
life.
can do it 1 hour at a time.
No, I can't. No.
You do other things 1 hour at a time. Yeah, like you sing. You
I
sing
know,
for
but
hours on end.
I would want to binge, watch it.
Oh well, right.
And,
that'd be tough. But no, it's on my
It's-
summer list.
it might
I'm-
be a
I'm-
summer
I'm doing
project
it.
for me, but
yeah.
It's worth it. It's awesome. Okay.
all right. Next question.
All right, my name is Chase Hartzell, and I actually have a lead-up question leading into my question, and it is: have you seen the trailer for the Yesterday movie?
No.
The one about the world forgets about the Beatles, and then that one guy learns about all his.
The one guy.
Yeah, one guy still remembers all his songs, so
Oh.
he goes out and passes them off as his own. Basically becomes.
No.
That's awesome.
No. I haven't seen. No,
haven't.
but that's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, well, that was going to be my question was, would you rather see more original ideas like that concerning music groups, or would you rather see more biopics like Bohemian Rhapsody and the upcoming Rocket Man?
Well, that exact thing, being a musician, I have thought, because I've tried to write songs for years and years, I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if one of my favorite bands didn't exist, but I knew all the songs, and I would release them. 10 years ago, I had that idea, and I never thought there'd be a movie about it. I would love that, to be able to do that. Okay, but yes, I've had that thought 1,000 times. I thought, man, I wish I came up with that song. What
Which
if they
band would
didn't
you
exist?
eliminate, and then you would take credit for their stuff?
Well, it's been different bands at different times. It was the Dave Matthews Band for a while. It was Blink-182. I'd write all their songs. Some of the, but it was, yeah. I mean, think about like if Queen didn't exist, but you knew their songs, and then you could write it and sell it to like studios or perform it. That's what I would, yeah. It'd be awesome.
Do well.
But
Hold
I
on.
like
Well,
biopics.
here's a separate thought though. Just because you write the song doesn't mean that anybody but that group could have been successful with that song.
That's true. And finding, I mean, how long would it take me to make the song sound like they did it? I might not ever be able to get there. It'd be a different singer. I'd be like, why doesn't it sound as good? I'd be frustrated.
Because sometimes the group dynamic or the artist in particular, they have this aura around them which makes the thing that they do extra special. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that anybody else is going to be as successful. You brought up Rocket Man, for example. I don't know that anybody else is going to be Elton John enough to be able to pull those songs out and make them work, I don't know. Like, that's a weird thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. You gotta pick somebody like Bob Dylan. Like he doesn't even sound good anyway, and so whatever you do with it, it's gonna make it sound great.
Well,
so
that's the song. What's the Greatest Showman? The Never Enough song. The first time I ever heard that, I thought that's a great song. Like, and I had that like, if you just look at the lyrics, but like being a musician or being in a band specifically, like if we could just get a gig here, that's where I'd love to be doing monthly gigs there. And then, of course, you get a gig there finally, and it's like, okay, well it does seem like it's. And so I just thought that was so nicely worded. Why didn't I think of that? But, it's because I'm lazy and I don't really sit around trying to write songs all the time. But, yeah, I've had that thought a million times.
Right. But for your other question, like more biopics or more like original ideas, I think we just kind of show that it's not so much an original idea. Like somebody else who was a musician, because I had the exact same thought when I was in high school. It's like, what if Hendrix had never existed, and then like I was the one who writes Voodoo Child. Like, how incredible.
Are you a musician as well? Okay, see, I guess that's why I never thought that, because I don't do that.
Right. I think almost every musician's probably had that.
Like I was busy drawing things, graphic arts, and you guys were playing music, and you're out there wanting to murder musicians, and I was like, no, what if Hendrix never existed? Oh my God, like those words never entered my brain or out my mouth until just now.
Well, maybe not existed. Maybe he could just live in my closet with a gag and like, teach me.
I'm actually uncomfortable just even thinking about it. But okay.
All right.
Okay, my name is Sydney Blunt, and my question is, who do you think would be the most, top 3 most evil dictators that have ever reigned?
Well,
most evil.
In my evil book, it's Hitler, Stalin, and Zedong in that order by influence. But, I mean, you get somebody crazy enough.
I mean, I think
evil's a weird word.
I got to put Vlad the Impaler and like Ivan the Fourth, Ivan the Terrible in the mix there. Yeah, Caligula.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at my evil book, it ranks the top 100, but 70 of them are just like serial killers. Just think if you gave them control of a country. We focus on Hitler because of the racism of the Jews and all that, and Stalin killed 30 million. But you take one of these because they're all psycho. But some of these serial killers, that's all they want to do is kill. They don't care about the power of their country or making their economy better. All they want to do is kill people. You put them in charge of a country, that seems like that would be worse. Because their only passion is to kill people. And then they would have the power to actually do a lot more.
Why do you think that, and we've had this conversation a long time ago, why do you think that Hitler ranks above Stalin or even Mao Zedong on the bad dude list?
I don't know. And the Emperor of Japan got away with 0 war crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When what they were doing in China and other places were just as...
The rape of Nanking.
Rape of Nanking is horrific. I think he's a perfect bad guy. I think it's the racism.
Right. And I think part of that is how very deliberate it is. A lot of the things that wind up happening under Mao's government, like, he thought it was a good idea, and then it blew up in his face.
Great leap forward.
Right.
Yeah.
The whole.
Well,
exactly.
don't discredit his actual attempts to murder people, though.
No, not at all. But I don't think even then on the scale
right.
of Hitler, I don't think it
Do
matches.
you think that it has to do with the fact that the Holocaust has been so publicized, and Stalin did everything sort of behind the scenes, and Mao did a lot of things behind the scenes, and they're behind sort of iron curtains in their own way, and we don't get the same kind of publicity?
Hitler didn't have a Siberia to send people to. Yeah. He had Poland. Right. And, after the war, it became very publicized. And it was a certain ethnic group that he wanted to incinerate. Stalin killed his own people just as well as anybody else. So I think it's because of just the racist element of Hitler.
Well, and I think that's a good point, though, the access to that information, because very much so, like, the Soviet Union and Russia doesn't let a lot of that information out. China certainly doesn't allow a lot of that information out, but we know so much more. I mean, think like the Armenian genocide, like this horrific thing, but just not enough of us know about it.
I was going to throw a name out there from Cambodia,
a
guy named Pol Pot, who the Cambodian genocide.
And he died peacefully without ever being brought to justice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At least Hitler had to commit suicide, get him out of the way, but some of these guys got off scot-free.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just pick an area, pick a time. There's lots of people that would probably qualify on that list, but the ones that like I said, it's kind of odd to me that there are certain ones who sort of rise up to this level of notoriety that others don't. even though there are heinous crimes across the board in lots of different places across history. So, yeah, I like your Vlad the Impaler story, though. Even though, let me say this, and this is something we teach about in class, is that if you go to Romania, like that, there are statues up to that dude because he's not viewed as necessarily an evil dictator. He's viewed as someone who defended Christianity against the evil the incursions against the Ottoman Turks. Like, he's not necessarily vilified there. That's a Western European interpretation of what that dude was doing. But he was on the front lines of a holy war and took that job very seriously. And so there's a whole nother take on that guy.
Hey, I've got that reminds me of like somebody like Napoleon, who has a very different history. I mean, we don't have very different legacy, but there's a guy who initiated a lot of wars and killing based on expanding the French. Why is he not viewed the same way some of these, like Hitler wanted to expand his country and take over other countries? So did Napoleon. And it was all about French. It was all about Germany. I mean, why is Napoleon remembered so much better? And I understand take the Holocaust away, but I'm just saying.
I don't think that he is, depending on where we're talking about. Like, because America is so much associated with, Francophile, we like France and Britain and all. So
they kind of honor him in France with the big tomb. And
it's huge. So because of our association with those two countries in particular, not that Britain had any love for Napoleon, but at the same time there's a respect for it. But if you go and let's go back to the Hitler story. One of the first things they did when they took Paris was to, they marched through the Arch de Triomphe, which is the thing that Napoleon put in place after his Battle of Austerlitz, which defeated the Austrians and the Prussians. And so there is a lot of anti-Napoleonic thought out there, depending on how you were. I mean, if you were on his side, then he's brilliant. If you were being oppressed by that guy and crushed,
he's as evil as
I wonder how they teach about Napoleon in Russia, for example.
Yeah, right.
I think a good part of that has to do with especially the Western world's experience with war in the 20th century. That the shine kind of falls off the apple. We're not as in love with war. It's not as romanticized by the end of the 20th century as it has been for so much of human history. I can't even conceive, even if World War III breaks out tomorrow, I can't conceive of it looking anything like Vietnam or World War II.
No, I know.
That kind of warfare almost seems like not just that it's out of fashion, but that we are unwilling to engage in it anymore. That level of brutality and that level of up close in your face on a large scale, I don't think see it the same way.
Yeah.
But because that Napoleon is old, we can still see it through that lens.
Is there a way to view the end of World War II and the dropping of the atomic bombs as mass murder? And therefore, doesn't that qualify our government, specifically Truman, even though he didn't necessarily pull the trigger, doesn't that qualify him as maybe in that same category?
It absolutely should, and we need to face that. 250,000 gone, men, women, children, people just like us.
Those are just the instantaneous deaths. That's not counting in the radiation
Fallout.
and the 20-year after effects of the poisonings and all the environmental hazards. And I mean, it's possible that we killed over 1 million people with those two bombs.
Yeah. Of course, I can always flip the script and what an invasion would also might do.
Right. I'm not. I wasn't debating whether we should or shouldn't.
Right,
I'm just saying from the standpoint of classification of is this villainy, in that if you take it completely out of any other context and we just look at number of deaths, doesn't that rise to that same level in some way?
I think it has to. If we're going to apply a definition of morality, and like a true universal morality, it has to.
Yeah.
Well, I know an invasion would have been catastrophic and more so, I think, right?
Well, it would have drug out the war. Soviets probably would have invaded. Who knows if what the fear was that would also make the Japanese more patriotic because we're invading. They were already arming their citizens and getting.
There were people here though, and I'm pretty sure you talked about this too, who wanted a complete genocide of the Japanese ethnicity. I mean sometimes we forget how violently we were opposed to all things Japanese during World War II. There were people who were like, you have more of those weapons, like keep dropping those things, like get rid of these guys. There was that sentiment in this country, in our government and around our population, because the propaganda had done its job. We need to kill them all before they rise back up against us. And I don't know whose cooler head prevailed, but
we also had thousands of POWs and we were worried if we invaded, it would give them time to kill them all. Instead of the bombs, maybe they would have mercy because then they would have a bargaining chip with the POW. So it's such a nuanced thing when you really bear down on all the different options. I still think maybe a demonstration on in Tokyo Bay or somewhere to show them what we could do.
A real warning rather than just hey,
right.
watch out.
Dropping pamphlets that nobody really believes.
I mean, the problem is we only had 2 of those things, and we were building more, but I mean.
Right.
On the other hand, it is war, and we're trying to win.
There's that too. Yeah, it's war.
I don't know.
Still, attack on civilian populations are just different,
Yep.
even in that war category.
They're indiscriminate. So poison gas, things that can just kill.
Yeah, but World War I and II were filled with that story, though. I mean, citizens were no longer citizens. They were enemy combatants because they were participating in the war effort during a total war scenario.
Right.
Yeah, and the next war might be worse. If we have another war and it's a cyber digital war, that's also going to not just affect military. That's going to affect, if they shut the lights off, that's everybody.
Right. Like India just flexed that, 3-4 weeks ago, that from the ground they shot out a satellite out of orbit. And now all of the pieces and the nuts and bolts from that satellite are now endangering all of the other satellites in orbit.
This needs
Why
to be
did they do
something
that?
else.
To prove that they could.
Prove that they could. That's brilliant.
We need another convention to make sure that all the major countries are on the same page as far as what's acceptable.
Or a space force.
Space Force.
Is that going to be a thing? I know he said that.
I haven't heard another peep about it.
Would you join Space Force?
I made as much fun of that as everybody else did because it sounds ridiculous, and plus it's Trump, so you just immediately laugh at it. But I can see a future where people are fighting for resources in space, Mars, wherever. We're digging coal out of the moon. I don't know, but you could see how you could have. I mean, we have international conflicts here. Why not in space? Maybe we would need some specialized Space Force. Let's call it Star Wars.
Reagan, right?
Yeah,
Star
SDI.
Wars.
Star Wars Initiative, yeah. Let's arm some satellites.
You know what's interesting is how much technological weapon improvement we had during the Cold War.
Ooh.
And then after the 90s.
Have you seen the new laser cannons that we have? Like
No.
the Navy
Yeah.
can shoot stuff out of the sky. I mean, I'm talking like pew pew. I mean, like that's real stuff now.
Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah, and that's the real sound effect too. Yeah.
That's cool.
No, look
With
that up,
lasers.
Yeah.
dude.
Well,
and I'm talking about hit.
right.
They can hit like boats coming at them, like blast it with laser energy and blow it out of the water.
Right.
Drones in the sky, and it locks on, and it can't be. You can't outmaneuver it.
We're
Look, yeah.
right.
Pew,
We're
pew. Yeah,
making
that's
it
a
a we're making it a part of
silencer on it.
air support too. We're strapping something because right now those kind of laser cannons are still really really big.
Sure.
So the Air Force is strapping those things to like 747s,
Oh.
and from way outside of a strike range, providing air support to fighter jets.
Nice.
I have a great book called The View from the Year 3000. Have I talked about this in class at all? What? Okay, I didn't know it was a song. Everybody settle down. 10 years ago, it was a book. So the guy that wrote my top 100 most influential people in world history wrote a book a few years later called A View from the Year 3000, where he speculated who would be the top 100 most influential in the year 3000. And one of them was a guy that basically invented a weapon, a brainwashing weapon, where you could control people's minds. And when you said that,
That's called the internet.
That's true.
Social
I
media.
think we've already accidentally did that. Yeah. All right. Who's next?
I'm Mallory Gray, and my question is, do you think parents should have the right to choose if they want to vaccinate their children?
No.
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 Next. Should parents have the right to be able to decide whether or not they want to vaccinate their children? You don't have the right to decide whether or not you want to vaccinate your dog. I'm not sure why this is even something that's happened in our society. No, they should
No.
absolutely be compulsory. You should have to do this.
You can't. I don't think that you have the right to turn yourself into a weapon of mass destruction.
Right. Now, are there potential, in very, very rare instances, are there potentially real medical reasons as to why? Like, you wind up having an allergic reaction to this vaccine, and that same agent
Yeah,
is
that's
in a
not
lot
what
of
I'm talking
different
about, no, yeah.
vaccines.
Yeah, generally.
But that's something very, very different, though. Like, should there be rare exceptions? Yeah. But what's happening now with this whole pro-plague movement? No, it's terrible.
Have you
Not really.
seen the number of states around us that are dealing with hardcore numbers? I mean, it's growing exponentially.
I know.
It's starting to hit here too.
Oh, I hadn't seen that.
It hasn't hit in a big major flash the way it hits in other areas, just because
Right.
we're still so rural. But
All right. Well, no. It's vaccines work. There's plenty of history to prove.
I mean,
that
we
they're-
make parents listen. We make think about this. We make parents send their kids to school. We make that compulsory by law. Now, that's not that controversial. I mean, they send them to private school, send them to public school. Or you got to figure out a way to homeschool them, but you got to prove some way that you're educating your child. So it's not that big of a leap. You got to make sure that your child doesn't spread a disease that kills a bunch of people, and you also don't need to kill your children. You know, there's got to be some But by and large,
matter how much you
parents
want
have a
to
lot of control over
sometimes.
their kids.
Okay, here's the other thing too. If you choose not to vaccinate, there are people who can't be vaccinated because of age or whatever, and you're putting those people at risk. Like, it's not just about you. And so, that's
Okay, yeah.
Right. What boggles my mind the most about this is that we have people that work in the medical field that have bought into this. There are people walking around that are RNs that are like, yeah, vaccines are bad.
The internet.
How does that happen?
I
It's
question
those
your
liberals.
I
That's
question
how it
your
happened.
validity as a
Or whatever.
medical
Fill in the
professional if
blank.
you think that.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Okay. It's the same, I mean, the earth is flat. How do people believe that? There's people that legit believe that. And,
Right. Like, I choose to believe that started as a joke. I don't know if I can believe that about vaccines.
yeah, true.
You
I don't know.
Like the whole flat eartherism, I really think like some people were just doing that ironically and like created the website and then it got out of control.
What if that actually happened? Like two guys are at a bar. One turns to vaccines are fake, right? Or they're bad for you. And some idiot's just walking by going, they are. And then he tells his friend and then, yeah. All right, next.
Hi. Yeah. Okay. What are your thoughts on Julian Assange's arrest, and what was it that he did besides expose through his WikiLeaks thing? Wasn't there like actual crimes he committed as well?
He's accused of sexual assault.
Yeah.
Also living by himself for how long? How many years was he in that embassy?
They said that he was creating havoc in that embassy. They were ready for him to
2012?
go. He's
I
been there for a
would too.
while, yeah.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
They said that he would just run amok, and they would have to, they were ready for him to be gone.
What if you only had this room and the bathroom across the hall for years on end? This is it.
Yeah, or you could go face justice like
Or
that.
you could go
you
do
don't
that.
have to stay in that embassy.
I know. That was
So-
his choice. So, yeah.
The question was, what do we think about his arrest? I think that there needs to be some jurisprudence. He doesn't just need to hide out. If he
Right.
can prove, if they can prove a case against him, then let punishments fall where they need to. If he can prove, if he can be exonerated in some way, then let that happen too. But just let the process work. I don't think hiding out in the embassy is the answer.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. I mean, like this needed to happen. Whether you agree with what he did or not, like this is breaking pretty serious laws because he's revealing state secrets, things, but not just of the American government, but lots of other governments. He's got to be one of the most hated guys in the modern era, at least for the people who actually are involved in these kinds of things. Where are those governments hiding things behind those walls that shouldn't have actually been hid and have happened in the first place? Absolutely. But anytime you discover a wrong like that, there's a right way and a wrong way to try to handle it. And how he did it is probably
Just
a
dumping
wrong
information
way.
out to the media is probably not the right way. Because you're putting, there are people whose lives depend on the secrecy that the government has and whatever. And so you might accidentally release information that would put hardworking people who are basically just doing their jobs at risk.
Right.
Or national security is a thing, right? We need to make sure that we have that, regardless of what the government's doing that could be something filled with malintent.
Mm-hmm.
So, I agree. There's a right way to kind of go about the whistleblowing process rather than just indiscriminately just throwing stuff out there. So there needs to be a trial over this, and we'll see what happens. Is he who arrested him? The British?
He's in London.
Yeah. So where's he going to go next? Are they going to extradite him to the United States? Are they bringing him here for trial?
I don't know.
We don't know.
It wouldn't surprise
Or
me
is
if
he
they
going
didn't
to-
have
or is he going
grounds
to
to
the
charge him too.
I think it's the Netherlands where he's facing.
He's got to make a few stops.
Right.
He's going to take a world tour. Then he's gonna
Are we looking at a Brussels situation? Is this going to wind up being a world court trial?
at the Hague, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know if it was like an Edward Snowden type
Snowden's pretty isolated to us, but whereas Assange has been involved in so many different things, and so presumably, like, why you want to do something like that is to exact change. I have found out something bad that's happening that needs to stop, so I want to try to create a situation that makes it stop. But these massive, massive info dumps can't really do that, because except for those that are just super interested and willing to comb through it, otherwise it's not digestible for most people, even people who care. And so it just becomes noise at that point, especially when you're doing it time after time after time. It is going to lose its impact, and you're not going to be exacting the change that you want. And we've seen one of the biggest examples I think of that is like the Panama Papers. Like, gigs of data that got dumped about how everybody's cheating the system and hiding money and robbing taxpayers blind, and nothing happens. It's just too much.
Yeah.
If he's found guilty of sort of international criminality, would other people be guilty for encouraging him to be doing what he's doing? Just curious.
Who would possibly encourage?
Incitement can be. I mean, encouraging somebody to violence with your words is not protected speech. At least in the United States, it's not.
Is encouraging someone to commit a crime also a crime?
Yeah.
Internationally?
Internationally, we need Jeremy for that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next question.
What do you think about the Democratic 2020 candidates, and who, if any, do you think would have the best shot at beating Donald Trump?
I'll tell you what is a really interesting thing is we can see evidence before of how media has manipulated elections, particularly for Democrats. Michael Dukakis is kind of the most recent famous example. Whether you like him or think that he's actually got a legitimate shot, it's happening to Bernie. That, like, there have been multiple polls where he's been, like, showing as number one, and then the media cuts off number one and shows you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and intentionally is leaving him off the screen and talking up other people when he still seems to have the most support amongst the largest number of voters. Like, that's something that's really, really interesting to me, and I'd like to know why that is.
I really feel that this election will be messed with again by Russia, because we haven't done anything to stop them. They're going to want Trump to be president again. Mm-hmm. And as of now, I think Trump is going to be the person to beat.
Oh, yeah.
I guess Biden is polling number one.
Right now.
Right now. Yeah.
So
I think he comes out of his sexual scandal just fine.
I'm not sure it's a scandal. I think it's just a talking point
right
now.
Yeah, the right can't say anything. I mean, good grief.
Yeah.
They got Trump for that. I mean, you can't talk a bunch about Biden, rubbing on women's shoulders when Trump has 19 women accused him of, all sorts of stuff. So I think Biden is the best chance for Democrats simply because he's a moderate. He'll be able to get Trump. I've said
and
this
he
before.
has tremendous experience governing at the highest levels. He's been a senator. He's now been vice president. Like, this dude has been in politics most of his adult life. Regardless of what you think about, liberal candidates or whatever it happens to be, and I agree, he's a moderate. Like, if you think about all the other candidates combined, they don't equal his experience.
Right, and if the Democratic Party's smart, they're not going to elect somebody on the extreme left, because Trump is so polarizing. You've got 40% of the United States will not vote for him no matter what. Of course, he's got his 40% that will vote for him no matter what. So it's those people in the middle. And if you go too far to the left, you're going to get those people in the middle to stay home, or maybe some of them will vote for him. But if you get a moderate and can get some of those that maybe voted for Trump last time but aren't happy with the circus that's occurred, I think a moderate Democrat's the way to go if they want to win. Or get an independent conservative like a Kasich or a Rubio or somebody they would actually have to leave the Republican Party, though. Which I don't see that happening.
No. Yeah, the far left candidates I don't think really have a shot, no matter who they are, and because I just don't know that they can build a coalition around themselves.
Right.
I think it's going to be Biden and Trump, and I don't know what to say about that yet.
Right. So one of Biden's biggest weaknesses throughout his political career has been his gaffes. He'll say something that he didn't really mean, but it comes out wrong. And I think Trump just so totally overshadows that one of his major weaknesses as a candidate isn't going to be considered so much of a weakness now. And so I think that gives him a much better shot.
Yeah.
I'd be super interested to see who amongst the current field he would wind up
Well, he's
picking for vice president.
Where's Biden from? Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Scranton.
Hey, that's an important state.
Yeah, and he comes from working class stock too. I mean, he's not one of these guys that grew up an elitist. I mean, this dude worked his way up. I mean,
it's crazy,
and he has credibility with working class people, and that matters.
Yeah,
and,
you're looking at 4 or 5 states
across the
really,
board too. They showed a poll yesterday, and it was I don't forget which. It wasn't a CNN poll, but it was some sort of international. I mean, it's some sort of national-wide poll, where he amongst I think the Obama effect helps him, because people who were still who still sort of yearn back for that sort of style of governing. I think that helps too. Amongst African Americans, Biden's polling really higher than any other candidate right now. So I think that makes a difference too.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking that I wonder if the association with Obama is going to wind up hurting him.
I don't see how.
Because it was
with the people who are going to vote for Trump anyway.
Sure.
Right. That's where that would make a difference. But they weren't going to vote for you anyway, no matter who you were associated with Obama or not. So I think that washes.
Yeah, you might be right, but the reemergence of that Obama connection as a whipping boy, the same way that Hillary was used that way, I think that could be detrimental.
I don't think Trump gets any more supporters, though, because he's going to have to sell the same thing. We got to stop immigration. We're going to repeal Obamacare. Wait, weren't you supposed to do that?
Yeah, somebody said, "Can you sell the same air twice?"
Yeah, so he's not going to pick up anybody new. And he's going to get his supporters, but I think he's locked in. I think Trump supporters are just there, and they're not going to grow. The Democrats have to figure out a way to get those people that won't come out.
Right. So I think your point about appealing to the middle is going to be important, but the Democratic Party also has got a lot of very rabid supporters that are on fairly far left. You know, the kind of burn or die group that are following Bernie
That's
Sanders.
going to be a gigantic factor, because I heard somebody say the other day, and I agree with this commentary, like what Democrats have failed to do is to coalesce.
Yes.
And what that ends up happening is that they end up cannibalizing their own candidates, and that's
Yeah,
all
they're the only party right now that does
what
that.
that's a recipe for is another Trump presidency
Yeah,
term. I mean, that's what that is. If
Absolutely.
they go down that path one more time and just eat up anybody who could, let's use Biden for the example. I saw people the other day when he first announced, and they were like, "Oh my God, he's old, he's qualified." Is the way you should focus that. Yeah, he's an older candidate, but at the same time, as far as experience goes and leadership qualities, right?
Like, yeah, but does qualify matter anymore?
I hope
just
it
elected
does.
Unqualified.
I hope it does.
Yeah, me too. I've always believed
Especially
in
after this.
meritocracy, but man, I don't know.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah. So we don't know. And by the way, I mean, we have such a long campaign season.
Right, 20
Who
plus
knows?
candidates now.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it's you. I mean, there's no who. Okay, so if it's who would be? Do you think Bernie has a chance if it's not Biden?
He's got just a rabid base of supporters that were unwilling to support Hillary whenever he didn't get the nomination before.
I'm not positive that they were willing to do anything besides internet campaigning, though. I don't know that they actually would have turned out for him at the polls, because that takes effort, and I don't know that was where that was actually going.
He's been raising a lot of money from that core group too, though. If they're willing to spend, they're willing to show up on election day.
Maybe.
All right. Next question.
So, I'm Carson Phillips, and so Mr. Pumphrey asked into Google Groups, just as the last Google Groups, what's our favorite thing we've learned this year, favorite unit, and so I was wondering what's y'all's favorite unit y'all like to teach and why.
Every year it's a little different. I feel like the more I teach, of course, the more I learn, and the more it hurts to go quickly through a unit. I mean, I could take one little topic, and I wish I could tell them these 7 things. We don't have time. Let's move on. And I can't stand that, because when I first started teaching, I didn't know any of that. So it only took me 5 minutes to cover the American Revolution. There was something about Britain, and we won. 1776, that's all I knew. But I guess it's still the founding. I just love that revolutionary period anyway.
I think for me it's in civics, I think it's the Bill of Rights. Like watching students learn about their rights, and then when they see something that's not fair, get upset about it, and then because if it's going to be a right, it has to be a right for everybody. Like, yeah, I want it to be right for me, but not for them. Well, then that's not a right. That's not how it works. And the discussions and the real thought that sparks, I don't think I ever get tired of it. That inevitably winds up becoming a month-long unit instead of the 2.5 weeks it's supposed to be, just because it becomes hypothetical fest. And constant, what about this? What about this? I love that.
I'm a really big fan of the 19th century everywhere because there's so many things that change so rapidly. I mean, you start that century in Europe with, let's say, the Napoleon story, or if we look here in the United States with the Louisiana Purchase, and we double our size and we're on our march. The dynastic changes that are going on in China, the things that are going on in Africa, things that are going on in India. So much changes so quickly because of industrialization and the fact that we're building modern life and technology systems and transportation systems. And then next thing you know, there's massive imperialism and we're on the verge of 2 world wars. I mean, you start with horses and cannons and you end with airplanes and mass communication. And I mean, there's so many things to talk about in that 100-year period. I think that's that in the Cold War. I really like Cold War era. Maybe it's because I grew up during that part.
Yeah. All right. Is there any other questions? We've got time for just a little bit more.
Sort of on the same topic, with not having enough time to teach what you want to teach, how do you feel about like year-round school and having a week per month as like a break? Because when it's calculated, a week per month and then going to school all year round would actually have less break time than we do now. So like, how do you guys feel about that?
The research and the case studies so far support it.
Yeah, I think it's better for the learning. It's probably not as good for the teachers because we like the break. And, you have to think about it. We teach all this, and then we turn right around and start all over with a group of students that don't know anything. And you're like, you got to start. They've never heard of Manifest Destiny, or they have, and they don't really know what it is. It's just like, here we go again. So that big break for teachers, I think, is important. But I think for students, especially in math and things like that, over that 2 months that you don't write or do anything, like when you come back, you're like, I don't even know how to do this writing thing. It takes like 2 weeks to start writing again.
All right. I'm going to be a fly in the ointment on this one because I disagree with year-round schooling, and here's why. Because I know very well that when we have any break, let's say it's Christmas break for 2 weeks, or we have Thanksgiving break, which we've now transferred into a 1 week thing or whatever. Every time you approach that break, students are gearing down.
Yeah.
And because they know they're about to be gone. And then you have that moment where they just completely I'm sure that they're going to avoid school like the plague during the week or whatever it is that they're off. And then you have to gear back up again once you get back to school. And then let's say you do that every month. You gear up and you gear down, and you gear up and you gear down. And I think the consistency of the pattern that we have right now, where we can just plunge in and drive through stories and really get, right, you get the, and I know it's long and I know it can be tedious, but at the same time, I think that the consistency matters. And if we flip that around the other way, then the inconsistency is going to drive less learning overall.
Do you think that eventually, like, students will change? Like,
To modify so that they won't feel.
not necessarily that, but do you think that they would get used to it and
Well,
It's, I mean, everything we're adaptable, but at the same time, I know that. Let me use another example. My wife is a special education teacher in the elementary schools, and for her students, being with her, and I'll use the word consistency again. Like, they practice their skills and they practice their skills and they drill and they drill and they drill. And she's dealing with kids who have honest learning disabilities and they need someone to be there in front of them, helping them every single day. And it may take them months to develop one skill that other kids might. And it's not necessarily their fault. Like, they have some sort of condition, or they have some sort of chemical imbalance, or they're born with they have IQ, whatever. Like, whatever the condition happens to be that slows them down. If they don't have that consistency, it's much harder for them to grasp that skill. And the more you can be in front of them, and the more often you can be in front of them without a break, the more likely it is for them to develop those skills that you've been trying to work on. And every time you take a break, it's going to be a detriment to them. And so not just for those special ed kids, whoever that might be or whatever their condition might be and whatever level they're trying to achieve might be, but for standard students too. Students who are who are not dealing with some of those same issues also benefit from the consistency of being in the classroom on a more
but wouldn't that be an argument
basis.
for year-round education?
Year-round education, the
Because
way
you're-
that they're talking about it now is that we'll go for a month and take a week break, and go for a month and take a week break, and go for a month
That's
and take a week break.
consistent.
That's no, the pattern breaks up too often.
No.
It's a consistent inconsistency.
Think about
Right.
the 2 months though that they're not only away from that, but they're way away from it for months.
No, I understand that argument too. I
Yeah.
get that.
And
but-
by the way, this is not. It's not. There are schools that do this, so the
Right.
the
Yeah.
studies are out there, and
And maybe it's because I'm biased because of the way I teach it.
Maybe.
The flow of what I'm teaching matters.
yeah, I think it affects different subjects differently.
Yeah.
And I think for math and science, year round might be better because those are so, just the way that they're geared, is skill based, and where maybe history is not
Well,
quite the same.
let me go back to what I said too about the gear up and gear down. I know a lot, even though we shouldn't. I know there are teachers who do that as well. And we're going to be gone soon, so we're just going to take the day off.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to really
That'd be-
corral
yeah,
that
of course,
behavior.
that's a different argument, but
I know,
yeah.
but I think it plugs into it.
Yeah.
So something that I've seen some schools playing around with, and this takes a ton of community buy-in, is they're extending the school year. So you're going, not getting as big a break in the summer, but rather than like 3 weeks on, 1 week off, they're doing consistent 4-day weeks, so that you get every single Friday off or
Microdosing.
something like that. Because the gear up, gear down, I don't see that on our 3-day weekends.
Right.
And so that's a way to be more consistently and more engaged, but also still get bigger breaks. But at the same time, you're dislodging a ton of parents from work that have younger children. Like, how you make that work for families
That's the issue.
is a big
That's
challenge.
the issue because I have kids, and man,
Okay, one more factor on that, and we think about it from a professional standpoint. We do a lot of professional development during the summer. We go get extra training. We go, and I mean, we not just training for what we already teach, but maybe to move up in a level of. I mean, maybe people are going to go become administrators, or, for example, you just recently got your master's degree, and
Right.
I did a lot of mine during the summer as well. Or we have to go and do AP training. Like, when do you incorporate those things in? When the nation is not going to schedule us at other times, are we going to miss school to go and do those things now?
Yeah.
Or are we just not going to do those things?
That's a good point.
Even though they're required,
Yeah.
right? So that's something that has to be thought about as well. Those bigger breaks allow other things to happen that we need to have happening. When do they do building maintenance? When do they repaint classrooms? When do they buff floors? Are we going to, can you do that all in a week? No. That's part of the reason. I mean, this building, if you come in during the summertime, you won't recognize it. The classrooms are gutted, the halls are filled with things, and they're in here doing real hardcore maintenance work. Or we're doing construction. I mean, those things will be put. I mean, you got to figure out the nuances of that too, and the logistics are going to be complicated. I would think. I mean, I don't.
Right.
Maybe there's a way around it. I don't know.
Right. So in most places, you still get a good solid break during the summer, but it's not that whole 2.5 months. So maybe it would be 3-4 weeks. But your point still stands. Like, that's still a long time to get everything done maintenance.
Or in more rural districts that don't pay their teachers as well because they can't. Some teachers go off and get summer jobs.
Yeah.
And once again, this is a study that can be done and has been done and is probably continuing to be done.
Teachers and students, I should say, get summer jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just going to be, I don't know. There's been a push for this for 20 years though. So I don't know when it's going to happen.
Maybe I'm just an idiot. Maybe I'm completely wrong about everything I said, but that's the way it seems to me.
Well, what I have studied is the achievement gap that happens, and it tends to happen most during the summer between students who go home and continue learning, whether their parents take them on trips or make them or read with them at night, or I'm talking for younger age too,
Right.
Versus kids that go and have no parenting, no educational environment. They come back a little behind the other kids.
Yeah, no, I get
with
that.
that 2 months. And I'm not saying if you eliminate that, who knows? It's still the same time.
Well, isn't that what we're trying to do here with our new summer school program? It's not just what it used to be. You show up here and you do a few
Right,
things. Like,
yeah.
we're actually trying to be more engaging for kids who actually need that because they don't have that consistency at home.
Yeah, that's where I met Mr. Orr, Brunei. I met them for the very first time. They were presenting Lakeside Summer Program at a principal's thing that I had to go to because I just graduated with a master's to be a principal. So I went to this thing, and I met Lakeside was putting on a thing, and I went to it because I was interested in that summer school program. And, yeah, it was great. So we actually do a good job there. Okay, we don't have much time left. Has anybody else got any burning issue? Last question.
I kind of like the topic with talking about the recent election, but I was just wondering about the past election. Do you think I feel like it was the battle of who's the worst candidate besides who's the best.
Yeah.
And I feel like with someone like Joe Biden, which is, in my opinion, seems like a very nice, rounded candidate if he can beat Trump based on that. Because I feel like Hillary was just more polarizing than anything.
Yeah, well, Biden will get down in the dirt a little bit, and
what was it that was so irritating about Hillary as a candidate? Have you ever pinpointed that? I mean, I've heard people say that, but I mean, is there some sort of universal? It seems like there's some universal hatred of the woman.
You could see her reading poll numbers while she gave a speech. What kind of person do they want
so
me to be today?
So she was disingenuous, and that was the biggest problem people had?
I think that was part of it.
That's part of it.
There was a big segment of the population whose biggest problem with her was that she didn't have a penis. Right? There were a lot of people, misogynism is still so real that a lot of people, men and women alike, said, no, I can't vote for a woman to be president.
And Trump was the candidate for change. So if you hate your life, and, if Obama didn't help, might as well throw in with Trump because Hillary's going to be the exact same. So if you wanted change, if you didn't want a woman, and if you thought Hillary was fake and that she,
or was a criminal.
Yeah, and of course there was, she got lambasted that way too. They're still worried about her emails. My whole thing was right before the thing was look, I'm not a Hillary supporter, but I knew Trump would be a circus, and I knew it would take us in this very crazy, we're not going to get anything done, which he hasn't, except tax cuts. I knew he wasn't going to appeal. He's just not qualified in any way. He's going to make America look pretty foolish, which he has. So she was the less, I thought, okay, you just got to, you don't support her, but hey, let's just deal with her, and then maybe we can get somebody better, But, yeah, we elected Trump. Which, by the way, I think is the greatest election upset in American history. I believe that will be the second, I think, when Truman won in 1948, because I taught about that recently, when he beat, what's his name? I can't think of his name.
Dewey?
Dewey. Yeah, when Truman ended up winning, that's probably the second, if I had to guess, maybe. And then there's Polk, dark horse candidate, But yeah, it was a huge, we left school that day going, there's no way Trump could win.
Yeah.
Who would vote for him, really?
About 7 o'clock, though, I texted you and some other people, and I was like, President Trump. And then I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning, and I was right.
Yeah, and I just laid down.
I could just feel it. I just knew it was going that way. I could just feel the numbers going in that direction. I'm like, she's not going to pull this out. And sure enough.
And I'll say this, as crazy as it has been, it's not as crazy as I thought it would be. He actually has been a president much like a conservative as far as policy.
If you just look at his politics, it's not that crazy from where you would think a Republican president would be. It's the circus around the politics that tends to be the thing that bothers most people.
He started off with the Muslim ban, and he did a couple things. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But then eventually he settled down, and I think he got, okay, I can't do everything. I'm not a king. And then, it's pretty conservative. So,
He is king of social media. I thought it used to be Howard Stern. Now it's him. I think it is.
Yeah. All right. I've got these rapid fire questions, but we only have time for one. And let me pick a good history one, because there's all sorts of personal ones and books. What would you, blah, 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 mystery you'd like to solve? All right. If you could resurrect one person from history and put them in the world today with a modern education, modern sophistication, who would it be?
Do I have to swap them for a living person?
No.
I could just grab some random person. I don't know. Just sucks to suck.
I'm going to go for James Madison. He is the architect of our government. And there's one of the biggest constitutional debates that's currently going on is this originalist founder's interpretation versus is it a living document that was meant to change over time? Well, if anybody had the authority to be able to go, no, this is that guy. And so if we can account for that by letting him have that modern education too, that answers a lot of modern day political questions in the United States.
Yeah. I haven't even thought about this. Go ahead.
I've got so many people swirling in my head. Maybe some religious dude, like, I don't know, Jesus. Let him see the state of Christianity today and see what he thinks about it.
That's true. That would be.
How many Christians reject him?
Oh.
How many Christians reject him?
I mean, we could do the same thing with other religious leaders, I suppose. but yeah.
Muhammad.
Who is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
okay? So take people in their time period. Like I immediately am drawn to some scientists that you could bring today to help solve some of the problems like global warming, or somebody that's got who in their time period was the smartest for their time period. I mean, like just go looking like you have Newton, who was way above everybody at his time, but then you think of somebody like Aristotle, who's also the expert in every field for his time.
Da Vinci.
But phenomenally wrong about so many things.
He was, yeah.
Too.
That's true.
Right.
I wonder.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Da Vinci was further ahead of everybody else than anybody at his time.
Probably super genius level abilities.
Yeah, I mean that's what the phrase means. Like a Renaissance man is really
Da
your Da
Vinci.
Vinci. You can do a little of everything. Your science. Well, Benjamin Franklin was kind of like that too. Yeah, I think James Madison. That was a good answer. I didn't think that through.
You don't like my Jesus story?
No, I like that too. I immediately though think, okay, who can help solve some of our science problems? Yeah, Newton was crazy.
Newton. Let's go Newton. That's pretty good. That's my answer, not yours, but go ahead.
Yeah. You know what? Newton did most of his scientific work in his 20s. He spent most of his time in alchemy and
When was he in?
living in an
Didn't
attic.
he? Wasn't he incarcerated before? Not incarcerated. Wasn't he? Did he have to go into an asylum before he died? Didn't he? Like in his 30s, wasn't he
Yeah,
committed?
he basically went crazy.
Yeah.
He was
So you bring back non-crazy Newton.
non-crazy Newton.
Okay.
Newton in his like mid-20s. Or Einstein would be fun again, Isaac Newton.
You said? Did he say Cam Newton?
I said
I'm
Cam Newton?
I'm gonna have to listen to the.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to listen to the
Cam
audio
Newton.
on
I
that
didn't
and
catch
see. Cam Newton. Let's bring Cam Newton back to life. Resurrect his career.
That wouldn't be bad. Cam Newton. Oh, all right. That is the podcast. Thank you very much. Goodbye.